The grand hall of the Galactic Council erupted in laughter, not the polite, diplomatic kind, but the sort that made the massive crystal chandeliers shake. Captain James Walker stood at the podium, his weathered face remaining calm despite the humiliation. Behind him, the holographic display showed Earth's latest achievement, the Infinity Edge, humanity's first seventh-dimensional vessel. "You expect us to believe," wheezed the Astrolite High Commander between fits of laughter, his blue crystalline form pulsing with light, "that your species, barely 1,000 years into space travel, has mastered dimensional technology that we haven't achieved in 50,000 years." Walker gripped the edges of the podium. The past 6 hours had been nothing but mockery. Representatives from over 300 advanced civilizations had taken turns explaining why humans were too primitive to understand even basic dimensional physics, let alone achieve 7D travel. "The data speaks for itself," Walker said, his voice steady. "We've successfully completed 3 test jumps within our solar system. We're here to share our findings and establish safety protocols for—" "Safety protocols," interrupted another delegate, a being of pure energy contained within an environmental suit. "They think they need safety protocols. My species has spent millennia studying the 6th dimension, and these primates claim to have skipped straight to the 7th. More laughter followed. Walker noticed how some of the younger species representatives looked uncomfortable, perhaps remembering their own experiences of being ridiculed by the older races. Back on the Infinity Edge, which hovered just outside the Council's space station, Walker's crew watched the proceedings through the main view screen. Lieutenant Robert Smith, the ship's tactical officer, clenched his fists as he watched his captain endure the mockery. "We should show them," Smith muttered. "One quick jump would shut them up." "Not yet," said Dr. Anna West, the ship's chief scientist. "Remember the protocols. We can't reveal our full capabilities until Earth gives the green light." The council chamber grew quiet as the Astrolite High Commander floated down from his elevated position. His crystalline form towered over Walker, casting a blue glow across the human's face. "Let me explain this in terms your primitive brain might understand, Captain," the commander said, his voice dripping with condescension. "The 7th dimension isn't just another layer of space-time. It's a fundamental aspect of reality that even our most advanced theories barely grasp. Your species still thinks 3-dimensionally, occasionally grasping 4-dimensional concepts. The idea that you've mastered 7D travel is as absurd as a fish claiming it has built a faster-than-light engine." Walker smiled slightly. "With all due respect, Commander, perhaps that's exactly why we succeeded where you failed. Sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to solve an old problem." The commander's crystalline surface rippled with what might have been anger. "Fresh perspective. Your species was throwing spears at each other when we were already mapping 5-dimensional space. The Astrolite Empire has guided this galaxy's technological development for countless generations. We know what is and isn't possible. And yet," Walker said quietly, "here we are." The council erupted again, this time in angry murmurs. Several delegates started shouting about humans needing to be put in their place and taught the natural order of things. Walker's communicator buzzed quietly. A message scrolled across his retinal display. "Earth Defense Command. Large ASTRALIT Fleet Movement DTTKT. Multiple Battle Groups entering Solar System EGs. Return immediately." He looked up at the sea of hostile faces. The council hadn't been a diplomatic mission at all. It had been a distraction. "This session is clearly over," Walker announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Earth extends its thanks for your enlightening response to our announcement." As he turned to leave, the Astrolite commander called out, "Remember this day, Captain. Remember how the galaxy laughed at your delusions. It will make the lesson we're about to teach humanity much more meaningful." Walker didn't respond. He walked steadily through the grand doors, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Only when he was alone in the transport pod heading back to the Infinity Edge Did he allow himself a small, knowing smile? The galaxy's laughter would stop soon enough, and when it did, the silence would be deafening. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Marie Thompson stared at the holographic display with tired eyes. She hadn't slept in 36 hours, but sleep could wait. The data streaming across her screen confirmed what she had suspected for months. The aliens were looking at dimensional travel all wrong. Run the simulation again, she told the lab's AI system. Focus on the consciousness interface this time. Around her, Project Transcendence's main laboratory hummed with energy. Unlike the sterile, crystal-based technology of the astrolites, the human facility was a blend of organic patterns and mechanical precision. Vines of quantum processors wrapped around pillars that pulsed with soft light, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. Dr. Thompson called out her assistant, Tom Reed, from his workstation. Captain Walker's team just left the Galactic Council. The astrolites reacted exactly as you predicted. Marie nodded, not taking her eyes off the display. And their fleet, moving into position around our solar system. They took the bait. A smile crossed her face as new data flowed across the screen. Let them come. We're ready. The breakthrough had come 3 months ago, when Marie had been watching her young daughter play with soap bubbles. The child had laughed as the bubbles merged and split, existing in multiple states at once. That's when Marie realized. The other species approached dimensional travel like engineers trying to break through walls. Humans needed to approach it like children blowing bubbles. Final simulation complete, announced the AI. Consciousness drive integration is stable at 99.97%. Marie turned to the center of the lab, where the heart of their discovery pulsed with a light that seemed to bend in impossible ways. The Infinity Edge wasn't just a ship, it was humanity's first attempt at turning consciousness itself into a dimensional key. Send the update to the Infinity Edge, she ordered. Tell Captain Walker he has full authorization to use the final version. Tom looked up from his station. The astrolites still think we're bluffing. Their scientists say our approach is impossible. That's because they never understood what dimensions really are, Marie explained, walking over to the central display. They tried to force their way through dimensional barriers with pure energy. We realized that consciousness itself is the key to dimensional travel. The mind already exists across multiple dimensions. We just had to learn how to bring the body along. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights pulsed as emergency protocols activated. Multiple astrolite warships have entered the inner solar system, reported the AI. They're bypassing our outer defenses. Marie remained calm. She had expected this. The astrolites' pride wouldn't allow them to ignore humanity's claims. They would try to crush Earth's advancement before it could threaten their technological supremacy. Send the final code sequence to all our 7D vessels, she ordered. Authorization Thompson 7 Delta. On screens around the lab, data streamed in from the 3 ships humanity had secretly equipped with the new drive. The Infinity Edge, the Quantum Dream, and the Reality's Edge, each now carried humanity's greatest achievement. Dr. Thompson, Tom called out, his voice tense. The astrolite fleet. They're charging weapons. Their energy readings are off the charts. Marie walked to the main window overlooking the drive core. The crystalline structure at its heart pulsed with possibilities, each quantum state representing a different dimensional layer. What the aliens saw as solid barriers between dimensions, humans had learned to see as permeable membranes. Send one final message to Captain Walker, she said. Tell him, the bubbles are ready to merge. The lab fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Somewhere above them, in the space around Earth, humanity's first true test of 7D technology was about to begin. The astrolites expected to find a primitive species playing with technology they didn't understand. Instead, they would face an enemy that could step between dimensions as easily as walking through a door. May the gods help them, Tom whispered. Marie shook her head. No gods needed, just human ingenuity. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough isn't in how much power you have, but in how you think about the problem. Above them, the first shots of a war that would reshape the galaxy were about to be fired, and humanity was ready to show the universe why underestimating Earth was the last mistake the astrolites would ever make. The Infinity Edge hung silently in space near Mars, its dark hull reflecting the distant sunlight. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, watching as hundreds of astrolite warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Their crystalline ships glowed with building energy, forming a massive wall of blue light that stretched across the stars. "They're hailing us," Lieutenant Smith reported from his station. His hands hovered over the tactical controls, ready but steady. Walker nodded. "Put them through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the same astrolite commander from the council meeting. His crystalline form pulsed with barely contained rage. "This is your only warning," the commander's voice boomed across the bridge. "Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your species' arrogance ends today." Walker looked around his bridge. The crew sat calmly at their stations, each wearing the neural interface headband that connected them to the ship's 7D systems. They had trained for this moment for months. "Commander," Walker replied, "I suggest you return to your territory. What you're about to witness might frighten you." Laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Still playing your game? Very well. Squad 1, demonstrate to these primitives the consequence of their defiance." 20 astrolite ships broke formation, their weapons charging. Blue energy gathered at their forward arrays, building to levels that would vaporize most ships instantly. "All hands," Walker called out, "prepare for dimensional shift. Dr. West, activate the consciousness drive." Dr. West's fingers danced across her console. The ship's interior lights dimmed as power redirected to the 7D core. A gentle hum filled the bridge as the crew's neural patterns synchronized with the ship's systems. "Target locked," the astrolite commander announced smugly. "Fire." 20 beams of pure energy lanced through space toward the Infinity Edge. Walker closed his eyes, feeling the dimensional currents through his neural link, just as Dr. Thompson had taught them, like stepping through a soap bubble. "Now," he whispered. The Infinity Edge shifted, not up or down, not left or right, but in a direction that made the astrolite sensors scream in confusion. The energy beams passed through empty space where the ship had been, but also where it still was, and where it would be. "Impossible," the commander shouted. "Where did they?" The Infinity Edge appeared behind the attacking squadron, then above them, then beside them. The ship existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, each version as real as the others. "What are you seeing, Commander?" Walker asked calmly. On his tactical display, he watched the astrolite ships spinning in confusion, their sensors unable to lock onto the Infinity Edge's true position. "This cannot be." The commander's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns. "You cannot exist in multiple dimensional states. The energy requirements alone would be impossible using your methods," Walker finished for him. "But we didn't use your methods." The Infinity Edge phased again, this time appearing in the middle of the astrolite formation. Not by moving through space, but by shifting through dimensional layers like walking through parallel rooms. Panic spread through the astrolite fleet. Ships began firing randomly, their energy weapons passing harmlessly through the Infinity Edge's dimensional echoes. Some beams even struck other astrolite vessels as the human ship seemed to bend reality around itself. "Stand down," Walker ordered. "This is your last chance to retreat." The commander's response was a scream of rage. The entire astrolite fleet opened fire, turning space into a web of deadly energy. The Infinity Edge responded by existing everywhere and nowhere at once, its crew's combined consciousness guiding it through dimensional spaces the aliens couldn't even perceive. "Dr. West," Walker called out, "show them what happens when you try to corner a species that thinks differently." The ship's 7D drive pulsed. Reality rippled. The Infinity Edge didn't just move through space, it moved through possibility itself. When it reappeared, it had somehow passed through the Astrolite fleet's shields as if they didn't exist. Because in the dimension where the Infinity Edge now partially existed, they didn't. The commander's voice cracked with fear. "What are you?" Walker smiled. "We are humanity. And we've only just begun." Around them, the Astrolite fleet started to retreat. Their confident advance turned into a panic-stricken withdrawal. They had come expecting to crush a primitive species. Instead, they had witnessed the beginning of a new era in galactic history. The era where humanity showed the galaxy why imagination was more powerful than arrogance. News of the Infinity Edge's impossible maneuvers spread through the galaxy like wildfire. In the following days, the true nature of human 7D technology began to reveal itself in ways that made even the most advanced species question their understanding of reality. The Infinity Edge hovered near Jupiter's orbit, surrounded by observation ships from 30 different alien civilizations. Each came to witness what the Astrolites had declared impossible. Captain Walker stood on his bridge, watching the gathered fleet through windows that sometimes showed the past and sometimes the future, depending on which dimensional layer the ship partially phased through. "They're scanning us again," Dr. West reported from her station. "This is the 47th different scan method they've tried. They still can't figure out how we're doing it." Walker nodded. "Show them something new. Activate the probability drive." The ship's consciousness-linked crew joined their thoughts through their neural interfaces. The Infinity Edge responded by splitting into 5 identical versions of itself, each one equally real, each existing in a different probable timeline. Through the observation fleet's communications channel, they could hear the chaos their display caused. "Which one is real?" demanded a scientist from an energy-based species. "They're all real," another voice replied. "And none of them are. They're existing across probability streams." Dr. West's console beeped with urgent data. "Captain, 3 Astrolite battle cruisers just dropped out of FTL. They're charging weapons." "Let them," Walker said calmly. "It's time to demonstrate why attacking us is pointless." The Astrolite ships fired, their energy weapons at full power. The beams passed through all 5 versions of the Infinity Edge simultaneously. But instead of destruction, the beams simply passed through empty space. The ship existed between the moments of impact, in the quantum spaces where possibility hadn't yet collapsed into reality. "Impossible." The Astrolite commander's voice shook. "Nothing can exist between moments." Walker touched his neural interface, connecting deeper with the ship. Dr. Thompson's breakthrough wasn't about forcing our way through dimensions. It was about understanding that reality is more flexible than you ever imagined. To demonstrate, the Infinity Edge began to move. Not in any direction that conventional sensors could track, but through layers of dimensional space itself. The ship appeared younger than it was, then older, then back to its present state. It existed partially in the future and partially in the past, making targeting impossible because it was never fully in any single moment. "Their shields," an alien observer reported with awe. "They're not deflecting attacks. The attacks simply cannot hit them because the ship exists in quantum superposition across multiple dimensional states." The observation fleet's sensors recorded everything as the Infinity Edge demonstrated more of its capabilities. The ship phased through solid matter by shifting to dimensions where that matter didn't exist. It appeared at multiple points in space simultaneously, not through speed or teleportation, but by existing across probability curves that all happened to be true at once. In the ship's medical bay, the crew experienced no disorientation from these impossible maneuvers. The consciousness-linked drive system translated their natural human ability to imagine impossible spaces into actual dimensional shifts. What the aliens saw as reality-breaking physics, the humans experienced as natural as walking through doorways. Final demonstration. Walker announced to the observation fleet, "Watch carefully." The Infinity Edge split into its 5 probable selves again. But this time, Each version began existing in a different dimension simultaneously. One phased partly into the fourth dimension, another into the fifth, and so on, until the original ship operated across all 7-dimensional layers at once. The alien observers fell silent. Their most advanced sensors couldn't even process what they were seeing. The ship wasn't just moving through space-time, it was rewriting the rules of what was possible. This is why you couldn't develop 7D travel, Walker explained to the watching fleet. You tried to force reality to obey your rules. We learned to work with reality's actual nature. Everything is connected across all dimensions. We just had to learn to see the connections. As the demonstration ended, the observation fleet transmitted their data across the galaxy. The age of astrolite technological supremacy was over. Humanity had not just mastered dimensional travel, they had fundamentally changed how the galaxy understood reality itself. And they were just getting started. The Astrolite High Command launched their attack at dawn, Earth time. 5,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, their crystalline hulls forming a sphere around the solar system. This wasn't just a show of force. It was an attempt to erase humanity's advancement before it could change the galaxy forever. In Earth's orbital command center, military leaders watched the massive fleet's approach with surprising calm. They brought their entire fleet, General Thomas observed, studying the holographic display, just as Dr. Thompson predicted they would. The Infinity Edge was no longer alone. 2 more ships, the Quantum Dream and Reality's Edge, hovered in formation near Earth. 3 ships against 5,000. To anyone watching, it seemed like suicide. The Astrolite Supreme Commander's transmission reached every screen in the solar system. His crystalline form pulsed with barely contained fury. Your dimensional trickery ends today, he announced. Surrender your 7D technology, or we will reduce Earth to cosmic dust. Captain Walker, now commanding the combined human fleet, stood on the Infinity Edge's bridge. All ships, consciousness link active. Remember your training. We're not just fighting with technology. We're fighting with imagination. The Astrolite fleet launched their first attack. Thousands of energy beams converged on the 3 human vessels, enough power to shatter a small moon. But the human ships didn't dodge. They didn't need to. The Quantum Dream shifted into the 6th dimension, where energy weapons had no meaning. The Reality's Edge split into 12 probable versions of itself, each one drawing fire. And the Infinity Edge simply ceased to exist in the moment of impact, reappearing behind the Astrolite fleet's front line. Now, Walker ordered, show them why they should have kept laughing. The 3 human ships moved in ways that defied physics. The Quantum Dream phased through the Astrolite shields as if they weren't there, because in the dimension it partially existed in, they weren't. The Reality's Edge attacked from multiple timelines simultaneously, its weapons striking the same targets across different probable realities, causing damage that couldn't be repaired because it existed in quantum superposition. But it was the Infinity Edge that truly showed what humanity's technology could do. The ship moved through 7 dimensions at once, appearing inside astrolite vessels without breaking them, then shifting reality around their critical systems. Weapons disappeared into pocket dimensions. Engine cores found themselves aging 1,000 years in an instant. Impossible. The Supreme Commander screamed as his fleet began to fall into chaos. No species can manipulate reality like this. You still don't understand, Walker replied calmly. We're not manipulating reality. We're working with it. The universe isn't made of solid rules. It's made of possibilities. We just learned to see them. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than an hour. The mighty Astrolite fleet, terror of the galaxy for 50,000 years, found itself helpless against 3 ships that could step through dimensions as easily as walking through doors. When the Supreme Commander ordered his remaining ships to launch their planet-killer weapons at Earth, the 3 human vessels demonstrated their final capability. They linked their consciousness drives together, creating a dimensional fold that sent the massive energy weapons into a universe where Earth didn't exist. The attacks hit nothing. while Earth remained untouched in its proper dimension. "Stand down," Walker ordered as the Infinity Edge phased into reality directly in front of the Supreme Commander's flagship. "You can't win this fight. Not with all the weapons in the galaxy." The Astrolite fleet, or what remained of it, began to retreat. Their perfect formations were shattered. Their mighty weapons proved useless against an enemy that could simply choose to exist where the attacks weren't. As the last Astrolite ships fled, Dr. Thompson's voice came through on the command channel from Earth. "Remember, Captain, we didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we dared to think differently." The human ships regrouped near Earth, their hulls shifting with dimensional energies that the galaxy's best scientists still couldn't explain. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just ready to join the galactic community. They were ready to lead it into a new age of understanding. The laughter had stopped. The future had begun. The great halls of the Galactic Council, which had once echoed with laughter at humanity's claims, now stood silent. On the massive central screen, recordings of the battle between 3 human ships and the Astrolite fleet played on repeat. Species that had existed for millions of years watched in stunned silence as their understanding of reality crumbled. Dr. Thompson stood at the same podium where Captain Walker had faced mockery just days before. But now, no one was laughing. The difference, she explained to the assembled representatives, was never about technology. It was about perspective. Behind her, holographic displays showed the basic principles of human 7D travel. Not the complex technical details. Those would come later. But the simple, almost childlike way humans had approached the problem. "Your civilizations tried to force their way through dimensional barriers," she continued. "You built bigger engines, more powerful drives, trying to punch holes in reality. We ask ourselves, what if there are no barriers at all?" The quantum dream appeared outside the council station's windows, its hull shifting through dimensional states like ripples in a pond. Several delegates flinched, still not used to seeing the ship exist in multiple realities at once. A representative from one of the oldest species raised his hand. "But the energy requirements, the computational power needed to calculate dimensional shifts." "That's just it," Dr. Thompson smiled. "We don't calculate the shifts. We imagine them. The human mind naturally understands how to think in impossible ways. Children do it every day when they play. We simply built a system that translates that natural ability into dimensional movement." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found themselves working together, trying to understand this new perspective on reality. On the Infinity Edge, now serving as Earth's flagship, Captain Walker watched through the ship's probability-shifted sensors as the galactic power structure reorganized itself. The Astrolites, once the undisputed masters of technology, found themselves seeking alliances with younger races, hoping to learn new ways of thinking. Another delegation requesting permission to study our consciousness drive technology, Lieutenant Smith reported. "That's the 47th today." Walker nodded. "Direct them to Earth's new Dimensional Sciences Academy. Dr. Thompson's team is setting up training programs." The ship's communication system activated, showing a group of young Astrolite scientists. Their crystalline forms pulsed with excitement rather than the usual arrogance. "Captain," their leader spoke, "we've been reviewing Earth's historical records. Your species has been imagining impossible spaces in your fiction for thousands of years. Stories about spaces bigger on the inside, about worlds between worlds. Were you preparing for this all along?" Walker smiled. "Not preparing, just staying open to possibilities. Every human child knows that reality is more flexible than it appears. We just had to remember how to see through their eyes." Across the galaxy, the change was spreading. Species that had relied on brute force and vast energy expenditure began exploring consciousness-based technologies. The human approach to dimensional travel sparked a renaissance in fields from medicine to art, as civilizations learned to see reality as a canvas rather than a prison. Dr. Thompson's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Captain, The Council is ready to ratify the new dimensional exploration treaties. Earth will chair the committee. Send them our confirmation, Walker replied. And remind them, this is just the beginning. The Infinity Edge shifted slightly, aligning itself with a dimensional layer that let its crew see the flowing patterns of possibility around them. In the ship's observation deck, alien visitors gasped as they saw, for the first time, the universe as humans had learned to see it, not as a rigid structure of physical laws, but as an endless dance of interconnected possibilities. Your species, one visitor said in awe, you see reality like this all the time. No, Walker answered. We see it as even more amazing than this. That's why we succeeded where others failed. We never stopped believing in impossible things. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of forcing reality to comply with rigid rules was over. Humanity had shown them a new way, not through superior force or advanced technology, but through the simple power of imagination. And somewhere, in a lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a child was still playing with soap bubbles, seeing possibilities that even the oldest species in the galaxy had never dreamed of. 1 month after the battle that changed everything, the Galactic Council gathered for its most important session in 50,000 years. The Grand Chamber looked different now. The rigid crystalline architecture had been redesigned with humanity's help, incorporating spaces that seemed to flow between dimensions, making the impossible feel natural. Captain Walker and Dr. Thompson stood together at the center of the chamber. Above them, the Infinity Edge could be seen through the transparent ceiling, its hull shimmering as it existed partially in several dimensions at once. 200 diplomatic vessels surrounded it, not in fear, but in respect. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Walker began, his voice carrying to representatives of over 1,000 species. 1 month ago, you laughed at humanity. Today, we offer you a hand in friendship. Dr. Thompson stepped forward, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. It showed the basic principles of human dimensional theory, deliberately simplified so even the youngest species could understand. We will share our technology, she announced. But first, you must understand our terms. The chamber fell silent. Even the astrolites, their crystalline forms now dimmed with humility, listened intently. First, Thompson continued, all species, regardless of their age or technology level, will have equal access to dimensional science education. No more treating younger civilizations as inferior. Walker took over. Second, 7D technology will never be used for conquest. Any species that attempts to use it for aggressive expansion will lose their access. The Infinity Edge and its sister ships will enforce this rule. To demonstrate the point, the Infinity Edge outside shifted through several dimensional states simultaneously, a casual reminder of humanity's capability to enforce their terms. Finally, Thompson said, all species must commit to the new dimensional exchange program. Your scientists won't just learn the technology. They'll learn to think differently, to see reality as we do. A young astrolite representative raised his crystalline form. And if we refuse these terms, then you continue on your current path, Walker replied calmly. We won't stop you, but you'll be left behind as the rest of the galaxy enters a new age of exploration and discovery. The chamber erupted in discussion. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves agreeing with each other. The promise of understanding reality in a new way proved more powerful than ancient grudges. In orbit above Earth, new construction had already begun. The Dimensional Sciences Academy took shape, its architecture defying traditional physics as it extended into multiple dimensional layers. Students from across the galaxy would come here to learn not just the technology, but the way of thinking that made it possible. The vote is unanimous, announced the council speaker. The terms are accepted. Dr. Thompson smiled. Then let me show you something we've been working on. The holographic display changed, showing plans for a new type of ship, not a warship, but an exploration vessel designed to travel not just through space, but through the layers of reality itself. We call it the Imagination's Edge. Walker explained. Built with cooperation from 20 different species, combining human dimensional theory with the best technology the galaxy has to offer. Its mission: to explore not just new worlds, but new ways of existing. The chamber filled with excited chatter. The ship in the hologram represented something unprecedented: genuine cooperation between species that had once thought themselves beyond learning from others. 1 month ago, Thompson said, you laughed at the idea that humanity could master dimensional travel. Today, we invite you to laugh with us. Not in mockery, but in joy at the wonders we'll discover together. The infinity edge shifted one final time, aligning itself with a dimensional layer that let everyone in the chamber see reality as humans did. The galaxy spread out before them, not as a cold, empty space, but as an interconnected web of possibilities, each one waiting to be explored. The future begins now, Walker announced. Not with conquest, not with competition, but with cooperation and imagination. As the council session ended, ships from 100 worlds began their journeys to Earth, carrying the first students of the new age. The galaxy had been unified not by force or fear, but by humanity's greatest gift: the ability to imagine the impossible and make it real. The laughter that had once echoed in mockery was replaced by the sound of 1,000 species working together, learning to see the universe through new eyes. And somewhere in the dimensional streams, the future looked brighter than ever before.